So hey anime fans. The series name is What If Naruto Got Harem with Fairy Tail. So let's start the series. The sky above Konoha was the color of a fresh bruise, purple, green, and utterly wrong. It wasn't a weather phenomenon. It was a wound. A vertical crack, shimmering with unstable light, had torn reality itself above the Hokage monument. From it bled not rain, but motes of alien energy that tasted of ozone and starlight, causing ordinary chakra to fizzle and flare unpredictably. Naruto Uzumaki stood on the roof of his apartment building, his orange jacket stark against the eerie gloom. Beside him, the massive form of the Nine-Tails, Kurama, was fully materialized, a low, continuous growl rumbling in his chest that vibrated through the very stones. That is not chakra, Naruto. Kurama's voice was a gravelly baritone in his mind. It is ordered chaos. It has rules, but they are not our rules. It seeks to overwrite what is here. I can feel it, Naruto murmured, his cerulean eyes narrowed. His sensory abilities, honed through sage mode, were screaming. The crack wasn't just in the sky, it was a fault line in dimensional layers. He could sense the sages and the Shinobi Alliance mobilization behind him, but this was beyond any infinite Tsukuyami or Otsutsuki threat. This was an accident of cosmic scale. We think it's a reaction. Shikamaru's voice came through a calm seal, strained. Your chakra, the Nine-Tails chakra, the residual energy from the last war, it's interacted with something buried deep under the continent. Something that wasn't meant to be awakened. It's pulling energy from elsewhere. Elsewhere where? Naruto asked. Before Shikamaru could answer, the crack pulsed. A wave of iridescent energy, visible like a distorted heat haze, washed outwards. It didn't destroy buildings, it transmuted them. A section of the forest at the village's edge shimmered and was now populated by crystalline trees that sang in a faint, discordant chorus. A stray cat, caught in the edge of the wave, yowled as its fur shifted through impossible colors before settling, its eyes now glowing with faint internal light. It is rewriting local reality with the laws of another place, Kurama snarled. If it reaches the village core. Naruto didn't need to hear the rest. He formed a cross sign. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. 100 shadow clones poofed into existence, scattering towards the crack, forming a massive barrier seal in midair, a complex network of glowing chakra scripts designed to contain and stabilize. But as the clone's chakra touched the bleeding edges of the fracture, the scripts didn't hold. They warped, their meaning twisting. The containment symbols became invitation sigils. The stabilizing arrays began to resonate, humming at a frequency that made teeth ache. It's not working! A clone yelled before dissolving in a puff of smoke, its memory and the sensation of its chakra being unraveled flooding back to Naruto. The feedback was a psychic burn. The main fracture convulsed. Instead of emitting waves, it inhaled. A vortex of impossible force erupted from the tear. It wasn't suction, it was a selective, targeted erasure of the space Naruto occupied. The world around him, the rooftop, the air, the very light, stretched into thin, glowing lines that all pointed towards the center of the fracture. His clones were ripped away instantly. Naruto! Kurama roared, his chakra flaring in a desperate attempt to anchor them. Crimson, malevolent chakra coated Naruto, forming the familiar shroud of the Nine-Tails chakra mode. But the vortex didn't pull on his body, it pulled on the concept of his energy. The foreign magic recognized Kurama's power as a massive anomaly, a focal point. The barrier teams and the Hokage were shouting, their jutsu flashing uselessly against the phenomenon. Naruto saw Sasuke's Rinnegan flash, a space-time ninjutsu activating, but it was too late. The vortex prioritized Naruto. It was as if the fracture had been waiting for him, for the unique fusion of immense life force, tailed beast energy, and sage chakra he represented. With a sound like shattering crystal and tearing silk, space folded around Uzumaki Naruto. The last thing he heard was Kurama's defiant roar, and the distant, panicked voice of his son, Boruto. Then silence. He did not fall. He unfolded. There was no tunnel of light, no sense of speed. One moment he was dissolution, the next he was reconstitution. It was violently gentle. He was aware of every particle of his being disassembled, scanned by a cold, curious intelligence that was the magical energy of the transit, and then put back together according to a slightly different set of cosmic rules. He landed on his hands and knees on soft, damp moss. The air was different. Thicker. Richer. It smelled of pine, damp earth, and something else, a ubiquitous, faintly sweet tang of ambient power. Magic. The word surfaced in his mind unbidden, a translation provided by the fracture itself. Naruto gasped, pushing himself up. His chakra felt loud. In the ninja world, chakra was a subtle current beneath the surface of things, accessible only to those trained to feel it. Here, his own energy seemed to buzz against the world, which was already saturated with a background hum of power. It was like shouting in a quiet library. Kurama? He thought, reaching inward. A groggy, pained rumble answered. I am here. That was unpleasant. My chakra is stable, but it feels heavy. Exposed. This world is alive with energy, boy. And it's looking at us. Naruto took stock. He was in a dense, ancient-looking forest. The trees were massive, their trunks wider than houses, and some had bark that glowed with a soft, bioluminescent fungus. In the distance, he could hear the roar of a waterfall, but it was a roar accompanied by a faint, melodic harmonic, as if the water was singing. High above, through the canopy, he saw 2 moons, one large and silver, one smaller and tinged with blue. Not home, he stated, the simple words carrying the weight of a universe. His instincts, honed by decades of warfare, were on high alert. He was in a new territory, with unknown rules, unknown threats. He closed his eyes, reaching out with his sage perception. In his world, he would feel the natural energy of the land, the slow, patient pulse of the earth, the flutter of life in animals and plants. Here, he felt that, but it was intertwined with vibrant, shimmering threads of active, willful energy. He felt presences, some small and flickering like fireflies, others deep and slow as tectonic plates, and a few, terrifyingly, that felt like swirling vortices of power moving with purpose. One such vortex was not far away, accompanied by several smaller, but still bright, signatures. And they were moving fast. Towards him. They felt me land, he muttered. Or unfold. He could run, hide. But Naruto Uzumaki had never been one for hiding. Besides, he needed information. Who were these people? Where was he? How did he get back? He centered himself, letting a fraction of Kurama's chakra simmer just beneath his skin, a golden aura flickering briefly. He didn't don the full cloak. That felt like announcing a declaration of war in this sensitive environment. He simply waited, standing atop a broad, moss-covered root, watching the direction from which the approaching energies came. They burst into the clearing with a speed and flare that was distinctly not shinobi-like. First came a streak of pink fire and exuberant shouting. A young man with spiky pink hair and a scaly white scarf shot through the trees, not with stealth, but with explosive propulsion from his feet, landing in a crouch that scorched the moss. He smelled of smoke and ash and immense, chaotic vitality. His eyes, fierce and black, locked onto Naruto immediately. Whoa! You're the one! You smell crazy weird! Right behind him, sliding across the ground on a wave of ice that formed with a crisp shing, came a dark-haired man, shirtless and scowling. Stop charging ahead, Flame Brain! We don't know what it is! His energy was cold, precise, a sharp contrast to the pink-haired one's wildfire. From above, with a flash of golden light and a soft pop, a young woman with long, blonde hair and a worried expression appeared, holding a celestial-looking golden key. Happy said the anomaly landed right here. And oh! Her brown eyes went wide as she saw Naruto. He didn't look like a monster. He looked like a man, maybe a few years older than her, in strange clothing, with whisker-marked cheeks and eyes that held a depth of experience that belied his youthful face. The most formidable arrived last. A woman with magnificent scarlet hair, wearing intricate, knightly armor that appeared and vanished in flashes of light, descended from a tree branch she'd leaped from. She landed with a solid thud, her single-handed grip on a massive, demonic-looking sword effortless. Her gaze was a physical weight, assessing, judging, unwavering. It was the look of a commander, a veteran. Urza Scarlet. Naruto held his ground, meeting each of their stares in turn. He raised his hands slowly, palms open. I'm not looking for a fight, he said, his voice calm, clear, cutting through Natsu's excited chatter. Your energy is disrupting the area, Urza stated, her voice leaving no room for argument. The Magic Council detected a dimensional rupture. You are the source. Identify yourself and your purpose. Magic Council. Dimensional rupture. The terms clicked into place. My name is Uzumaki Naruto. I'm lost. I was pulled here from my world by an accident. A fracture between dimensions. Another world? Lucy gasped, lowering her key slightly. Like Idolas? Different, Urza said, not taking her eyes off Naruto. The energy is different. It's not just foreign. It's antagonistic to ambient magic. Can you not feel it, Natsu? Gray? The ice maker, Gray, frowned, crossing his arms. Now that you mention it, the air feels staticky around him. My ice magic is itching. Natsu grinned, flames flickering at his fists. It feels awesome. Like a really strong, weird kind of ether nano. Hey, weird energy guy. Fight me. Let's see what you've got. Natsu, no! Lucy cried. But Natsu was already in motion, a human comet. Fire Dragon's Iron Fist! The attack was straightforward, a blazing punch. But to Naruto's senses, It was fascinating. The boy wasn't molding chakra internally and releasing it. He was inhaling the ambient magical energy, ether nano, his mind supplied, mixing it with his own body's energy, and expelling it as a specific element. It was like a bloodline limit made into a fighting style. Naruto didn't block with a Rasengan. That felt too much like an escalation. He simply moved, his shinobi speed a blur even to Natsu's enhanced Dragon Slayer senses. He appeared 3 feet to the left, Natsu's fist passing through empty air and exploding against a tree, which ignited with magical fire that burned with pink flames. Whoa! Natsu spun, eyes wide. Fast! He didn't use any magic, Gray said, his stance shifting. Just physical movement. He's using the internal energy, Urza observed, her sword shifting form in a flash of light to a slender, rapier-like blade. It's self-contained. It doesn't draw from the environment. It presses against it. Her expression grew graver. That is highly irregular. All magic, even holder magic like Lucy's, interacts with the world's ether nano. His power exists separate from it. It is an anomaly. The word hung in the air. Anomaly. Natsu, undeterred, charged again. Fire Dragon's Wing attack! Twin plumes of fire roared from his arms. This time, Naruto decided to test the interaction. He formed a simple, non-lethal Rasengan in his right palm, the spiraling sphere of compressed chakra buzzing quietly. He didn't throw it. He met one of Natsu's fiery wings with it. The collision didn't produce a mere explosion. It produced a reaction. The Rasengan, a construct of pure chakra rotation, didn't just disperse the magic fire. It began to unravel it. The structured spell of the Fire Dragon Slayer magic, its carefully woven pattern of intent, energy, and element, met the alien, self-referential system of chakra. The fire didn't vanish, it fragmented into its component parts, raw heat, light, and wild, uncontrolled ether nano that burst outward in a silent, expanding ring of distortion. The shockwave was colorless and silent, but it washed over the clearing like a physical blow. The singing waterfall's harmony stuttered into a dissonant screech before returning, softer. The glowing fungus on the trees dimmed for a full 10 seconds. Lucy's keys jangled violently on her belt, and she felt a brief, sickening disconnect from the celestial spirit world. Gray's instinctively formed ice shield shattered not from force, but from within, the magic holding it together momentarily undone. Urza's equipped magic flickered, her rapier dematerializing for a heart-stopping second before she reforged it with sheer will. Natsu was thrown backward, skidding across the moss, his flames extinguished. He stared at his smoking fists, then at Naruto's Rasengan, which still hummed calmly in his palm. What was that? You didn't beat my magic, you broke it! Naruto let the Rasengan dissipate, his own heart sinking. He saw the looks on their faces. The curiosity in Natsu's eyes was now mixed with confusion. Gray's was outright suspicion. Lucy's was fear. Urza's was cold, hard analysis, and in it, he saw the verdict. They see it now, Kurama growled internally. We are not just strangers. We are a walking contradiction to their world's laws. Urza leveled her sword, now re-equipped into a broader, more punishing blade. That was not dispel. That was magical negation. A localized collapse of spell integrity. Her voice was hard. Uzumaki Naruto. By the authority of the Fairy Tail Guild and in the interest of magical stability, you will come with us to be examined by the Guild Master and the Council. Do not resist. Naruto looked at the 4 of them, these vibrant, powerful people from a world of magic he didn't understand. He saw not malice, but duty, and a deep-seated wariness of the unknown. He was the unknown. He thought of Konoha, of his family, of the fracture that might still be threatening them. He needed allies here, not enemies. He needed to understand. Slowly, he lowered his hands fully. The golden flicker of Kurama's chakra faded away. He met Urza's steely gaze with his own, which held the weight of ended wars and hard-won peace. Okay, Naruto said, his voice quiet but firm. I'll come with you. But I'm not a thing to be examined. I'm a person. And I need to find a way home. The tension didn't leave the clearing. The magical distortion his Rasengan had caused still lingered in the air, a silent testament to his unnatural nature. As Urza gestured for him to walk ahead, with Gray and Natsu flanking him and Lucy following behind, Naruto felt the eyes of this new world upon him. They weren't just seeing a man in orange. They were seeing the living magic catastrophe. And the journey to change that perception, he knew with every fiber of his shinobi being, would be longer and far more dangerous than any path he had walked before. The first step was taken, not in Konoha, but in the singing forests of Earthland, under 2 alien moons. Chapter 2, Guild Law and Unwritten Truths. The walk to the town of Magnolia was conducted in a bubble of tense silence. Natsu's earlier excitement had banked into a simmering, confused curiosity. He kept sniffing the air around Naruto, his nose wrinkling. It's not bad, it's just thick. Like really, really old soup. Gray walked on Naruto's other side, his bare arms occasionally frosting over subconsciously, a defensive reaction to the perceived threat. Just keep moving, Soup Man. The guild will figure you out. Lucy trailed behind with Urza, her voice a hushed whisper. Urza, do you really think he's dangerous? He didn't seem evil. Just lost. Urza's armored boots crunched on the forest path with metronomic precision. Intent is irrelevant at this stage, Lucy. His mere existence is a destabilizing force. You felt the disruption. Magic has laws, principles that have governed Earth-land for millennia. He operates on a different set of principles. That makes him a walking unknown variable. The Council will want him contained until he is classified. Contained? Lucy repeated, a note of distress in her voice. Quarantined, Urza corrected, though her tone didn't soften. For his safety and everyone else's. Naruto listened, saying nothing. His senses were stretched wide, absorbing everything. The forest was alive with magical creatures, tiny sprites hiding in foxgloves, a lumbering earth beetle the size of a boar whose shell pulsed with geomantic energy, a flock of birds whose feathers trailed tiny rainbows. It was beautiful, overwhelming, and it all hummed against his chakra, creating a constant, low-grade feedback. He had to consciously pull his energy inward, making himself quieter. A skill akin to suppression but more delicate. They fear what they cannot categorize. Kurama mused, his presence a steady, grumbling warmth in Naruto's core. Their counsel sounds like your old village elders. Prone to panic and poor decisions. We'll give them a chance, Naruto thought back. They're not enemies. Not yet. The forest gave way to cultivated fields, then to the outskirts of a bustling, colorful town. Magnolia was unlike any settlement Naruto had seen. Buildings were painted in cheerful pastels, their architecture whimsical and slightly uneven, as if built with a touch of chaotic creativity. But woven into the very cobblestones and timber was magic. Street lamps glowed with captive will-o-wisps. A fountain in a square had water elementals dancing in its spray. People walked the streets with visible, casual magic. A woman carrying a basket that floated beside her, a man polishing a sign with snaps of his fingers that produced small cleaning clouds. And they all stared. It wasn't just at his strange clothes. As he passed, the ambient magic in the immediate vicinity would stutter. A floating basket would dip suddenly. A will-o-wisp in a lamp would flicker and change color. The water elementals in the fountain would pause their dance and peer in his direction, their forms shimmering with uncertainty. A low murmur followed their procession. Is that him? The anomaly the Rune Knights were alerting about. Look at the air around him, it's wavering. He's with Fairy Tail. Of course he is. Naruto kept his head up, his expression neutral, but inside, his stomach tightened. He was a disruption. A pebble thrown into the serene pond of this magical town. The feeling was profoundly isolating. Their destination was unmistakable. A large, multi-story building with a grand clock tower, but its most defining feature was the symbol painted proudly on its side, a smiling, fairy-like emblem. The Guild Hall of Fairy Tail. Even from the outside, Naruto could feel the dense concentration of powerful, clashing energies within, a cacophony of fire, ice, steel, starlight, shadow, and raw, explosive life force. It was chaotic, vibrant, and strangely welcoming, like the shouts from the academy training grounds back home. Urza pushed the double doors open. The wave of sound and smell hit Naruto like a physical thing. The roar of laughter, the clatter of mugs, the snap of breaking furniture. Was that a man being thrown through a table? The rich scent of ale, roasted meat, and ozone from minor, uncontrolled spellcasting. It was organized bedlam. The moment they entered, the bedlam faltered. Conversations died mid-shout. A mug froze halfway to someone's lips. The man who had been hurled through the table lay in the splinters, looking past his attacker toward the door. All eyes were on Naruto. He stood in the entrance, backlit by the afternoon sun, an orange-clad silhouette against the familiar, rambunctious warmth of the guild. He felt the collective weight of their magical senses pressing against him. Dozens of different magical signatures poked and prodded at the edges of his chakra, recoiling with varying degrees of confusion, interest, and hostility. A massive man with a kind face and a groomed mustache, who had been polishing a mug behind the bar, set it down carefully. His eyes, however, were sharp and assessing. This, Naruto guessed, was the guild master. Urza, the man said, his voice a deep, calm rumble that cut through the silence. Report. Urza stepped forward, armor clinking. Master Makarov. This is Uzumaki Naruto. He is the source of the dimensional rupture detected an hour ago. He claims to be from another world, brought here by accident. His energy system is independent of ether nano. It causes localized magical distortion. She paused, her gaze flicking to Naruto. He engaged Natsu briefly. His technique did not clash with Fire Dragon Slayer magic. It caused it to decohere. A new wave of murmurs swept the hall. Decohere? Broke Natsu's magic? Is that even possible? A blue, six-legged cat with white wings fluttered down from the rafters, landing on Natsu's head. It was super weird, master. The fire just came apart. Makarov's expression grew graver. He hopped down from behind the bar and walked forward, his small stature belying the immense power Naruto could feel coiled within him. He stopped a few feet away, peering up at Naruto with ancient, knowing eyes. Another world, Makarov repeated. Through no fault of your own, you have become a problem, young man. The Magic Council's Rune Knights are already mobilizing. They will want to take you into custody for analysis, which, in council terms, often means dissection and containment. Naruto met the old man's gaze. There was no threat there, only stark reality. I don't want trouble. I need to understand this world, and find a way to reverse what happened. My family, my home, they might still be in danger from the fracture. Your concern is noted, Makarov said, not unkindly. But your presence is a threat to the stability of magic in Earthland. We must determine what you are. He turned to the guild. Mary Jane! Levy! Analysis, please. A stunning woman with long, white hair and a gentle smile approached. Her magic felt, absorbent, mutable. Beside her came a shorter girl with blue hair and glasses, clutching a book. Her magic was intellectual, structured, like living script. I'm Mary Jane Strauss, the white-haired woman said, her voice soft. My takeover magic allows me to sense and analyze magical constructs. May I? She extended a hand, not touching him, but hovering it near his chest. Naruto nodded, staying perfectly still. Mary Jane's eyes glowed faintly. Her smile faltered, then vanished entirely. A look of profound confusion and unease crossed her features. It's not a spell. It's not a curse. It's not a magical particle reservoir. It's a closed circuit of life energy, of incredible density and complexity. It's generating its own power internally. It's not drawing on ether nano, it's repelling it. She pulled her hand back as if burned. It's utterly alien. Levy stepped forward, her glasses glinting as she opened her book. Scripts floated from its pages, encircling Naruto. Solid script, analysis, she intoned. The glowing letters swarmed around him, then began to shudder and break apart before they could form a coherent diagnostic. They didn't fade, they fractured into meaningless glyphs and dissipated. Levy gasped, her book snapping shut. It rejects external magical analysis. The script can't bind to his energy signature. It's like trying to write on water with ink that refuses to get wet. The guild hall was utterly silent now. The initial curiosity had hardened into something colder. He wasn't just strange, he was incomprehensible. A new voice, smooth and cynical, cut through the quiet. So, we have a magical null zone in human form. How inconvenient. A man with slick-back black hair and wearing a pristine white coat leaned against a pillar. His eyes were calculating. If he can negate magic, what's to stop him from being a weapon for a dark guild? Or worse, what if his presence, over time, creates dead zones where magic simply ceases to function? Laxus, Makarov said, a warning in his tone. I'm just stating the obvious, Gramps, Laxus Dreyer said, pushing off the pillar. His own magical power was a crackling, oppressive storm of lightning. It pressed against Naruto's chakra, and for the first time, Naruto felt a real challenge, a power that didn't just feel strong, but authoritative within this world's framework. The council will lock him in a magic sealing chamber so deep even his weird energy can't leak out. Or they'll try to dissect him to see what makes him tick. Either way, him being here puts a target on Fairy Tail. We're already seen as reckless. Harboring a living magical catastrophe won't help our reputation. He is not a thing to be dissected, Lucy burst out, surprising herself and everyone else. She stepped forward, her face flushed. He's a person. He's lost, and he needs help. Lucy's right, a new voice said, gentle but firm. A blond man with a gentle demeanor, wearing a vest over a high-collared shirt, stood up. We are Fairy Tail. We do not abandon people in need, no matter how strange the circumstances. This was Elfman Strauss, Mary Jane's brother. But the risk, Laxus began, is real, Makarov finished, silencing them all. He rubbed his temples. The risk is very real. However, Laxus, turning him over to the council immediately may be a death sentence, or a fate worse than death. And Lucy, Elfman, simply offering him sanctuary could endanger every mage in this guild and this town. He looked back at Naruto. You say you wish to understand and find a way home. Do you have any control over this disruption you cause? Naruto considered. He had been suppressing his chakra, making it as small and quiet as possible. But control? He thought of the Rasengan's effect. I can use my energy. When I do, it interacts with your magic unpredictably. It doesn't seem to cancel all magic. Your equip, Miss Scarlet, only flickered. It seems to disrupt spell structures that are in active formation or are external constructs. I don't fully understand the rules yet. Then we must learn them, Makarov declared. And we must do it before the Council's knights arrive. You will remain here, under Fairy Tale's supervision. But this is not Sanctuary, not yet. This is an evaluation. You will work with Levy to attempt to document your energy. You will spar, under controlled conditions, with willing guild members to gauge the extent and nature of your disruptive effect. We must build a profile, something to present to the Council that isn't just panic. We must prove you are not a weapon or a plague, but a person caught in a cosmic accident. It was a compromise fraught with danger. But it was a chance. Thank you, Naruto said, bowing his head slightly. Don't thank me yet, Makarov said, his eyes weary. The hard part begins now. Levy, take him to the library. Start with basic magical theory. He needs to understand what he's disrupting. The rest of you. He raised his voice, addressing the guild. Business as usual. And not a word of this to anyone outside these walls. The Council monitors our communications. The silence of our gossip will be the first clue we've taken him in. It won't buy us much time. As the guild slowly, reluctantly returned to its chaotic normalcy, though now with frequent, wary glances his way, Levy approached Naruto, her earlier fear replaced by scholarly determination. Okay, Naruto. Come with me. We have a lot to cover. As Naruto followed her towards a side staircase, he felt eyes on his back. Urza's assessing stare, Gray's cold suspicion, Natsu's burning curiosity, Laxus's hostile calculation, and Makarov's heavy burden of leadership. He was inside. But he was in a cage of uncertainty, in a guild that was his only lifeline in a world where his very breath seemed to offend the laws of reality. The evaluation had begun. The race against the Council's judgment was on. And in the shadows of the guild hall, a man with a grim expression and lacrime-enhanced eyes, a man named Free Justine, watched Naruto go. He had felt the disruption not just as a mage, but as a rune master. The stranger's energy hadn't just broken magic, it had, for a split second, altered the runic underpinnings of the space around him. That wasn't negation. That was transformation. He turned and slipped away, his mind already weaving complex runic arrays. They needed more than observation. They needed containment protocols. For the guild's safety. He was sure of it. The first seeds of internal dissent, born of protective fear, were sown. Chapter 3: The Library and the Lightning. Fairy Tale's library was a chaotic reflection of the guild itself. Books piled in precarious towers, scrolls spilling from overstuffed shelves, star charts and magical diagrams pinned haphazardly to every vertical surface. It smelled of old parchment, ink, and the faint, sweet ozone of charged lacrima. For Naruto, it was an island of relative quiet in the storm. Levy McGarden, however, was a whirlwind of focused energy. She cleared a space at a large, scarred oak table with a sweep of her arm, sending a cloud of dust motes dancing in a sunbeam. Right. First, foundations. She pulled a massive, leather-bound tome from a shelf, thumping it onto the table. The title, in flowing script, read, The Ether Nano Principle, a Primer. Everything in Earth-Land, Levy began, her voice slipping into a lecturing rhythm, is infused with ether nano, the fundamental particle of magical energy. It's in the air, the water, the earth, living beings. Mages are individuals with a high capacity to absorb, hold, and shape this environmental ether nano. That shaping through force of will, intent, and sometimes specific tools or languages, is what we call magic. She opened the book to a complex diagram showing energy flowing from the environment into a human form, then being expelled as fire, ice, or light. Naruto leaned forward, his whiskered face intent. It was similar to chakra in some ways, blending internal energy with external. But the source was completely different. Chakra was generated within the body, from the fusion of physical and spiritual energies. Here, the primary fuel came from outside. There are countless types of magic. Levy continued, flipping pages. Holder magic, like Lucy's celestial spirit magic, uses keys as conduits to form contracts with beings from another dimension. Caster magic, like Natsu's fire dragon slayer magic, involves internalizing the ether nano and producing a specific effect. There's also lost magic, ancient magic, dark magic, each with its own rules and costs. Costs? Naruto asked. Magic drains the mage's internal reserves of power. Use too much, and you can't cast until you recover. Some magics have additional prices. Celestial spirits require their gate to be open with the mage's own magic. Certain curses consume emotions or memories. She peered at him over her glasses. Your energy, you said it's internal. Does it deplete? Naruto nodded. Yes. We call it chakra exhaustion. It can be fatal if pushed too far. We recover it through rest, food, and meditation. But you don't draw from the environment to replenish it? Not directly. We refine our own physical and spiritual energy into chakra. Levi scribbled notes on a fresh parchment, her solid script magic making the words glow briefly. Fascinating. A closed, self-sustaining system. That's why you press against our world. You're not part of the cycle. She looked up, her expression serious. What you did to Natsu's fire. I have a theory. A spell is a structured, temporary pattern imposed on ether nano. It's like a sandcastle. Your chakra, when it interacts, isn't a wave that washes it away. It's like introducing a new type of sand with different properties. The castle structure can hold, so it collapses into its component parts, raw, unshaped ether nano and the residual intent of the caster. So I don't destroy the energy, Naruto reasoned. I just break the recipe. Exactly. And that's potentially more dangerous than just countering a spell. Levi's voice dropped. Unshaped ether nano bursts are volatile. In a dense magical area, or against a complex, high-level spell, the backfire could be catastrophic. You could cause a magical chain reaction. The weight of the implication settled on Naruto. He wasn't just an oddity, he was an unstable catalyst. How do I control it? Or stop it? We need to experiment. Carefully. Levi bit her lip. But first, we need to know your limits. Your capacity. Master Makarov authorized some controlled tests. Not here, obviously. She stood, gathering a few smaller books. We'll use one of the back training grounds. It's warded. The training ground was a sunken stone pit behind the guild hall, its walls inscribed with glowing runes that pulsed with a steady, dampening energy. Fried Justine stood at the edge, his arms crossed, his expression unreadable. He had insisted on setting up the containment wards himself. The runic array will suppress all magical energy within the circle to baseline levels, Fried stated, his voice cool. It should, in theory, also suppress your anomalous energy, Uzumaki, preventing any wide-scale disruption. We will test that theory. Naruto stepped into the center of the stone circle. The moment he crossed the runic boundary, he felt it, a heavy, smothering pressure on his chakra coils. It wasn't like chakra suppression, it was as if the very air had become thick syrup, resisting the flow of his energy. He could still access it, but it was sluggish, like trying to run underwater. The wards are working, Fried observed, a note of satisfaction in his voice. Okay, Levi said, standing safely outside the circle with a clipboard. First test, basic chakra manifestation. Can you produce the energy sphere you used against Natsu? Slowly, please. Naruto held out his palm. Concentrating against the ward's pressure, he began to spin his chakra. A Rasengan formed, but it was weak, sputtering, its distinctive whine muted. It hovered unstable. Observe the runes, Fried commanded. The runes on the walls around the pit glowed brighter where they faced Naruto, but they also began to flicker. Tiny, hairline cracks of darkness appeared in their luminescent lines. The Rasengan, though diminished, was still exerting its alien physics on the magical containment field. The suppression is not absolute, Fried murmured, his eyes narrowing. His energy is straining the ward's definition of magic. They are trying to suppress something they cannot fully categorize. Release it, Naruto, Levi said. He let the Rasengan dissipate. The runes stabilized, but the hairline cracks remained, faint scars in the stone. Second test, Levi said, her pen flying across her paper. Direct interaction. I will cast a simple solid script spell into the circle. You try to interact with it using only your energy, not physical force. Levi held up a hand. Solid script wall. A glowing, rectangular barrier of solidified light, the word itself made manifest, appeared in the air at the edge of the circle and floated slowly towards Naruto. Naruto extended a finger, channeling a thin stream of chakra to its tip. He touched the center of the word wall. The effect was instantaneous and dramatic. The structured light of the script didn't shatter. It bloomed. The letters dissolved, not into nothing, but into a brief, beautiful shower of prismatic sparks, raw, unformed light ether nano, before winking out. The release was small, contained within the circle, but it caused the surrounding runes to flare violently, and Fried grunted, taking a step back as if struck. Confirmed, Levi breathed, her eyes wide behind her glasses. Spell decohesion. The energy released was pure, untyped ether nano. Fried, are the wards holding? Barely, Fried said, his composure cracked. He was staring at the now empty space where the wall had been with something akin to horror. The runes are designed to contain energy, not to be rewritten by it. His touch altered the foundational script of the spell at a conceptual level. This is not negation. This is ontological erosion. The heavy door to the training ground banged open. Laxus Dreyer stood silhouetted in the doorway, his white coat swaying. He'd been watching from the shadows. I've seen enough. He strode into the room, his presence crackling with impatient power that made the ambient ether nano sizzle. The suppression runes seemed to bend around him, unable to fully contain his innate, storm-like energy. Laxus, this is a controlled experiment, Freed said, though his voice lacked its usual conviction. It's a farce, Laxus stated, his eyes, sharp and gold, fixed on Naruto. You're poking a bear with a stick and calling it science. We need real data. How does his chakra stand up to real power? To something that can't be unraveled with a touch? Lightning sparked at his fingertips. Step out of the circle, anomaly. Let's see what happens without the safety net. Laxus, Master Makarov didn't authorize. Levi began, her voice tight with fear. Master Makarov isn't here, Laxus interrupted. And the Council's knights will be. They won't be throwing dictionary words at him. They'll be throwing containment spells that could level the block. We need to know if he can be stopped by a proper mage. Well? Are you just a spellbreaker, or can you actually fight? Naruto looked from Laxus's challenging glare to Levi's worried face and Freed's conflicted expression. He understood Laxus's point, brutal as it was. Theoretical analysis was one thing. Survival was another. He needed to know his own capabilities in this world, against its true powers. He stepped out of the runic circle. The moment he left its influence, it was like surfacing from deep water. His chakra flowed freely again, buzzing loudly in the magical atmosphere of the room. The air around him visibly wavered. Laxus smirked. Good. No holding back. I won't. He didn't adopt a stance. He simply raised a hand. Lightning Dragon's Roar. It was nothing like Natsu's telegraphed, fiery charge. This was instantaneous, authoritative destruction. A concentrated beam of blinding yellow lightning erupted from Laxus's mouth, crossing the distance in less than a blink. It wasn't just electricity, it was Dragon Slayer magic, carrying the conceptual weight and destructive fury of a storm-given will. There was no time for a Rasengan. No time for clones. Only instinct. Naruto moved, not with shinobi speed alone, but by expelling chakra from the soles of his feet in a violent burst. He vanished from the spot just as the lightning bolt struck, cratering and blackening the stone where he'd stood. The thunderclap was deafening in the enclosed space. He reappeared off to the side, but Laxus's head was already turning, his eyes tracking the chakra distortion Naruto's movement left in the air. Fast. But magic can be faster. Lightning Dragon's Jaw. He swung his arm, and a spectral, crackling dragon's head of pure lightning formed around his fist, extending to snap at Naruto with impossible speed. This time, Naruto didn't dodge. He met it. He coated his own fist in a swirling mantle of chakra, not a formal jutsu, just a dense, protective layer. He punched the lightning dragon head-on. The collision was a catastrophe of conflicting physics. The lightning, a structured spell of immense power, met the self-contained, reality-resonant force of chakra. It didn't decohere neatly. It exploded. The spectral dragon's head detonated in a deafening blast of light, heat, and wildly released lightning ether nano. The shockwave threw both men backward. Naruto skidded across the stone floor, his arms smoking, the sleeve of his jacket scorched away, his skin beneath red and blistered. The chakra had protected him from the raw force and heat, but the magical backlash had burned him in a way pure electricity might not have. Laxus was forced back a step, his coat singed. He looked at his fist, then at Naruto, genuine surprise on his face. You didn't break it. You overwhelmed it with raw force. Interesting. His surprise turned to a fierce grin. So you can fight. Let's see your limits. Laxus, stop! Levi cried, but her voice was lost in the building roar of power. Laxus's body crackled with energy. Lightning dragons! He began. Naruto knew he couldn't keep trading blows. His chakra reserves were vast, but not infinite, and Laxus felt like a force of nature. He needed a different strategy. He formed a single-hand seal. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu! 10 shadow clones poofed into existence around Laxus, a distraction tactic as old as his genin days. But the effect in Earthland was new. The instant the clones appeared, the dense magical field of the room, already agitated by the fight, went haywire. Each clone was a perfect chakra construct, a self-contained anomaly. Their simultaneous appearance was like 10 tuning forks struck at different frequencies in a room of fine crystal. The ambient ether nano shrieked. The runes on the walls, already damaged, flared and then shattered, their light dying with a sound like breaking glass. The magical containment ceased. Worse, the wild ether nano released from the earlier clash, now combined with the disruptive presence of 10 clones, began to swirl chaotically. The air filled with random, painful sparkles of uncontrolled magic, miniature starbursts of heat, cold, light, and kinetic force that peppered the room. One of Levi's books, left on a bench, spontaneously burst into purple flames. A section of the stone wall glazed over with instant frost. Laxus paused, his spell fizzling as he shielded his eyes from the magical chaos. What the hell? The clones didn't attack. They, and the original Naruto, all formed a familiar, spinning sphere of blue chakra in their hands. 10 Raisengans, their collective whine rising to a teeth-rattling crescendo. But Naruto wasn't aiming them at Laxus. He was aiming them at the chaos. Now! All 11 Narutos shouted. They thrust their Raisengans into the swirling maelstrom of wild ether nano. The effect was not decohesion this time, but forced integration. The Raisengans, vortexes of pure chakra rotation, acted as centrifugal separators and stabilizers. They didn't cancel the wild magic, they caught it, spun it, and with immense effort of will from Naruto, harmonized it. The chaotic sparkles were drawn into the spirals. The purple fire snuffed out. The frost sublimated. The painful, random energy was smoothed, calmed, and gently dispersed as harmless warmth and light. It was an application of chakra control so fine, so demanding, it made sweat break out on Naruto's brow. He was using the Rasengan not as a weapon, but as a magical dialysis machine. When it was done, the clones poofed away, their memories of strain and focus returning to the original. Naruto stood panting in the center of the training ground, his clothes smoldering, one arm burned, but the room was stable. Quiet. Laxus stared. The arrogant challenge was gone from his face, replaced by stark, re-evaluating shock. Fried was speechless, his rune-crafting mind trying and failing to process what he'd just witnessed. Levi had dropped her clipboard, her hands pressed to her mouth. Naruto looked at Laxus, his blue eyes earnest despite the pain. I don't want to fight you. I'm not a weapon. I'm trying to understand. My power, it breaks things. But maybe, he looked at his still tingling hands, maybe it can also fix things. Or at least, keep the broken pieces from hurting anyone. The door slammed open again. Urza Scarlet stood there, fully armored, her expression furious. She took in the scene, the shattered runes, the scorch marks, Naruto's injuries, Laxus's stunned posture. What is the meaning of this? Urza's voice could have frozen lava. Laxus! You were expressly forbidden from unsupervised engagement. Laxus didn't look at her. He was still looking at Naruto. He finally shook his head, a short, sharp motion. He's not a catastrophe, Laxus said, the words seeming to surprise even him. He turned and walked towards the door, pushing past Urza. He's a paradox. And paradoxes are trouble. He paused at the threshold, glancing back. You've got power, anomaly. And control. More than I gave you credit for. That just makes you more dangerous. He left, leaving a heavy silence. Urza's gaze fell on Naruto. The anger in her eyes softened a fraction, replaced by weary understanding. The council's advanced scout team just arrived in town. They're asking questions at the mayor's office. Master Makarov is stalling them. She looked at the shattered runes, the evidence of power that defied classification. Our time for quiet study is over. You are now officially a fugitive of the Magic Council, Uzumaki Naruto. Fairy Tail has just become your accomplices. The evaluation was over. The war for his very right to exist in Earthland had begun. And the first battle, Naruto knew, would not be against the Dark Guild, but against the very authorities who governed this magical world. He flexed his burned hand, the pain a sharp reminder. He had passed one test, in the eyes of the guild's most skeptical member. Now he faced a test for which there was no syllabus, only survival. Chapter 4: The Council's Shadow and the Ghost of the Past. The air in the guild hall was no longer one of chaotic camaraderie, but of a garrison under siege. The raucous laughter had been replaced by hushed, tense conversations. Teams were being assembled, not for lucrative job requests, but for perimeter watches and information gathering. Mary Jane, ever the diplomat, was at the bar, her smile strained as she poured drinks for nervous-looking townsfolk who had come to whisper about the Rune Night blockade forming at the town's main gates. Naruto sat at a corner table, Levi fussing over his burned arm. She applied a cool, glowing salve, a basic healing ointment infused with gentle water make magic. The moment the magical salve touched his skin, it fizzed and lost its luminescence, its efficacy reduced to that of ordinary aloe. His chakra's passive field negated low-level sustained magic. It's not working, Levi sighed, wiping her hands on a cloth. Even passive, your body rejects external magical healing. You'll have to heal the old-fashioned way, or with your own energy. Naruto concentrated, letting a trickle of green, soothing chakra, a basic medical ninjutsu technique, flow to the burn. The redness faded, the blistering receded, leaving shiny new pink skin. Levi watched, fascinated and frustrated. A self-contained healing system too. You're a completely independent ecological niche. They see us as an invasive species, Kurama grumbled within. And they are not entirely wrong. Master Makarov stood on the bar, his small frame commanding the room's attention. Listen up! The Council has invoked Magical Priority Statute 7 Alpha. They claim jurisdiction over any extra-dimensional entity posing a potential threat to magical equilibrium. In plain terms, they're here for Naruto. A grumble went through the guild. On what evidence? Shouted a man with a bandana. The evidence of the dimensional fracture itself, which was detected by half the Lacrima networks in Fiori. Makarov replied grimly. And the testimony of a certain concerned citizen who reported a magical null individual causing disruptions in the West Forest. His gaze swept the room, lingering for a fraction of a second on Freed, who stood rigidly in a shadowed corner. Freed did not meet his gaze, but his jaw was tight. We have no legal ground to refuse them entry, Makarov continued. But this is our guild. Our home. They have no right to seize a person under our protection without due process. We will stall. We will demand proper hearings in the capital. Elfman, Evergreen, Bixlow, you're on main door duty. Be imposing, not aggressive. Urza, you're with me to meet the delegation. The rest of you, act normal. And for Mavis's sake, do not start any fights. As Makarov and Urza strode towards the front doors, Natsu plopped into the chair opposite Naruto, a fierce grin on his face. Don't worry, weird energy guy. Nobody takes a member of Fairy Tail without a fight. His fists were already smoldering. Natsu, no. Gray snapped, appearing beside him, shirt magically vanished. This isn't a bar brawl. These are the Rune Knights. You start a war with them, and the whole guild gets marked for dissolution. So we just let them take him? Natsu demanded. We're not letting them do anything, Lucy said, joining them, her keys clutched protectively. But we have to be smart. Master Makarov has a plan. Naruto looked at them, the fiery dragon slayer, the rivalrous ice maker, the compassionate celestial mage. They were arguing, but they were arguing about him. About his fate. A familiar, painful warmth spread in his chest. It was the feeling of being on a team again, even if he was the reason it was fracturing. Thank you, he said quietly. All of you. But I won't let Fairy Tail be destroyed because of me. If it comes to it, I'll go with them. Don't be an idiot, Natsu and Gray said in unison, then glared at each other. They won't just talk to you, Lucy said, her voice trembling. The council, they're scared of things they don't understand. They'll lock you away forever. The grand doors of the guild hall swung open. 3 figures entered, flanked by a dozen rune knights in polished, rune-inscribed armor, their spears tipped with lacrima that glowed with restraining magic. The lead knight was a stern-faced woman with silver hair cropped close to her scalp. But it was the 2 figures beside her who commanded attention. One was a portly man in ornate council robes, sweating nervously, a bureaucrat. The other was tall, gaunt, and dressed in severe black robes devoid of ornament. His face was pale, his eyes sunken and sharp, and he held a staff topped with a complex, slowly rotating geometric lacrima that hummed with a sound that set Naruto's teeth on edge. This was Inspector General Jotty's Vane, head of the council's Anomaly Containment Division. His magic felt like cold vacuum, a hunger that sought to categorize and then silence. Master Makarov, the silver-haired knight captain said, her voice clipped. By the authority of the Magic Council of Fiori, we are here to detain the extra-dimensional entity known as Uzumaki Naruto for assessment and containment. Makarov stood his ground, Urza a steel statue at his side. On what specific charges, Captain Lyra? Being from somewhere else is not a crime in Earthland. The charge is magical hazard class Omega. Inspector Vane spoke. His voice was dry, precise, like pages turning in a forgotten tomb. The entity's energy signature is an active destabilizing agent. His presence in Magnolia has already caused 17 documented minor magical malfunctions, a measurable dip in local ambient ether nanodensity, and his eyes flicked to the training ground door. The catastrophic failure of a standard containment ward. He is a walking dead zone. A cancer on the body of magic itself. He must be excised. The guild members stirred, anger and fear warring on their faces. He is a guest of Fairy Tail, Urza stated, her voice ringing. He has committed no hostile act. He seeks only to understand and return to his home. We are conducting our own evaluation. Your evaluation is irrelevant, Bane said, waving a skeletal hand. Fairy Tail's history of chaotic, rule-breaking behavior disqualifies you from any objective analysis. You are emotionally compromised. The entity is a threat. Captain, take him. The Rune Knights advanced, their lacrima spear tips glowing brighter. Elfman, Evergreen, and Bixlow moved to block the way, their own magic flaring. Stand down, Fairy Tail mages! Captain Lyra barked. Interference is a violation of council decree. The air crackled with imminent violence. Naruto stood up. He couldn't let this happen. He would not be the cause of a battle that shattered this guild, this town. He took a step forward. But before he could speak, a new voice cut through the tension, smooth, calm, and utterly chilling. Inspector Vane. It has been a long time. Everyone turned. A man leaned against the second-floor balcony railing, overlooking the scene. He was of average height, with dark hair and kind-looking eyes, wearing simple clothes. He held a cup of tea. He looked utterly harmless. But the moment he spoke, Inspector Vane froze, his pale face going whiter. Even Makarov's eyes widened in shock. "Why you?" Vane stammered, a crack in his icy demeanor. "You are supposed to be gone?" The man finished, taking a sip of tea. "I was. Now I'm here. And I find you threatening my new friends. That's rather rude, Jotties." Naruto's senses screamed. This man had no magical signature at all. It wasn't suppressed, it was absent. In a world thrumming with ether nano, he was a perfect void. But more than that, Naruto's sage perception felt something else, a profound, ancient weariness, and a will so immense it bent reality around him by sheer absence of need. "Who is that?" Lucy whispered, terrified. "A ghost," Bray breathed, his face ashen. "That's Zeref. Zeref Drangneel." The name dropped like a stone into the silent hall. The Black Wizard. The immortal mage of unspeakable power, bearer of the curse of Harem, whose very presence brought death. Vane regained some composure, though fear still glittered in his eyes. "This does not concern you, Drangneel. This is council business." "Everything concerning life and death concerns me," Zeref said softly, setting his cup down on the railing. "This young man." His gaze settled on Naruto, and for a moment, Naruto felt seen in a way he hadn't been since meeting the Sage of Six Paths, seen to the core of his soul, his past, his burdens, his friendship with Kurama. "He is an anomaly, yes. But he is not a cancer. He is a transplant. From a different tree of life altogether. Your methods would kill him, and in doing so, might unravel more than you know. The fracture that brought him here was not one way. It created a weakness. There are things on the other side of that weakness that would make even your anomaly division tremble." His words hung in the air. Naruto's blood ran cold. The fracture wasn't one way. Was Konoha in danger from something in this world? "You're lying to protect him," Vane accused, but his voice lacked conviction. "I have no need to lie," Zeref said. He looked at Makarov. "Master, give them a compromise. A probation. The council's observer remains, under Fairy Tail's supervision. The entity, Naruto, remains here, under my tutelage. I will study the nature of his energy and the stability of the dimensional fault. I am, perhaps, the only being in this world qualified to do so without being corrupted or causing further harm. In 1 month's time, we will reconvene. If I determine he is a threat, I will deliver him to you myself." The offer was staggering. Zeref Drangneel, the most feared mage in history, offering to vouch for and tutor the anomaly. Captain Lyra looked at Vane, uncertainty plain on her face. The bureaucrat was practically hiding behind a knight. Vane's mind worked visibly behind his sunken eyes. Confronting Zeref was suicide. But this was a face-saving retreat, and it gave the council a presence inside Fairy Tail. And Zeref's point about the fracture being two-way, that was a nightmare scenario the council had not considered. "Very well," Vane spat out, the words tasting like ash. "A probationary period. 1 month. Council Observer Jalal Fernandez will be stationed here to oversee." He gestured, and a hooded figure detached from the shadows behind the knights. He lowered his hood, revealing blue hair and a face marked with strange tattoos. His eyes were solemn, heavy with a past Naruto could almost smell, regret, pain, and hard-won redemption. "Jalal," Urza whispered, a complex storm of emotions crossing her face. "And," Vane added, a cruel smile touching his lips, "as insurance, the probation applies to the entire Fairy Tail Guild. Any major infraction, any significant magical disturbance traced to the anomaly, and the Guild's license will be suspended pending full revocation. His fate is now tied to your behavior. All of you." The trap was set. Naruto was no longer just a fugitive, he was a sword hanging over the entire Guild's head. Zeref merely nodded, as if he had expected nothing less. "Acceptable." He looked at Naruto. "We will begin tomorrow. At the site of your arrival. The forest remembers the tear." Then, as casually as he had appeared, he turned and walked away, vanishing into the shadows of the upper floor. The Rune Knights, with a final, uneasy glance around the hostile guild, retreated, leaving only Jalal, who stood silently by the door, a living reminder of the council's watchful eye. The guild exhaled a collective, shaky breath. They were safe, for now. But they had made a bargain with the devil, or at least, with the devil's older, more terrifying brother, to avoid the witch hunt. And they had a council spy in their midst. Natsu was staring at the spot where Zeref had been, his expression unreadable, a deep, instinctual conflict in his eyes. Gray looked shell-shocked. Lucy was clinging to Happy, who was trembling. Makarov turned to Naruto, his face aged a decade in an hour. You heard the terms. For the next month, your every action reflects on all of us. Zeref. I do not know his game. But he has bought us time. Use it wisely. Naruto looked at the guild, the family he had inadvertently endangered. He looked at Jelal, the observer with the sorrowful eyes. He thought of Zeref, the living void who spoke of threats from his own world. The simple goal of getting home had just vanished. He was now a political prisoner, a student of the darkest mage in history, and the potential doom of the only people in this world who had tried to help him. The path forward was no longer a line, it was a maze, and the walls were closing in. He bowed his head to Makarov. I understand. I won't let you down. But inside, a cold dread had taken root, colder than Gray's ice. Zeref had seen something in him. And Naruto feared that what the Black Wizard saw was not a person to save, but a key. A key to something best left locked away. The first lesson would be tomorrow. In the singing forest, under the 2 moons, with a teacher who understood death better than anyone alive. The real test was just beginning. Chapter 5. Lessons from the Void. The West Forest in the pre-dawn light was a cathedral of mist and murmured magic. The singing waterfall's melody was a somber dirge today, the bioluminescent fungus a sickly green. At the epicenter of the clearing where Naruto had first unfolded into this world, the air still tasted of ozone and wrongness. The dimensional scar was invisible to normal sight, but to those who could perceive the deeper layers, it hung in the air like a slowly healing wound in the world's skin. Zeref Drangnil stood before it, his back to Naruto. He wore the same simple clothes, looking more like a scholar than the most feared mage in history. He didn't radiate power. He was a silence so profound it became a pressure. Can you feel it? Zeref asked, his voice quiet, not turning around. The difference between here and there? Naruto closed his eyes, extending his sage perception. He felt the vibrant, humming grid of Aether Nano that was Earthland. And he felt the scar, a ragged line where that grid was torn, frayed. And through the tear, faint as a dying breath, he felt a familiar, distant resonance. The cool, clean flow of natural energy from his own world. A pang of homesickness, sharp as a kunai, lanced through him. Yes, Naruto said, his own voice rough. I can feel home. It's faint, but it's there. It is a bridge, Zeref said. Or more accurately, a fistula. A connection that should not exist, forged when your unique energy, this chakra, resonated with a latent, buried magic in your world, a magic that was a fossil from a time when our worlds were perhaps closer. You were the spark. The fracture is the flame. He finally turned. His eyes were dark, depthless pools. But flames attract moths. And worse things than moths. What do you mean? Naruto asked, though he dreaded the answer. Zeref gestured to the scar. Reach for it. Not with your body. With your chakra. A thin thread. Tell me what you sense on the other side. Not your home. In the space between. Wary, Naruto did as instructed. He extended a single, hair-fine filament of chakra from his fingertip, probing towards the faint resonance of his world. As it passed through the dimensional tear, his perception magnified. He felt the void between worlds, a cold, chaotic expanse where the laws of physics and magic broke down. And in that void he felt movement. Not physical, but conceptual. Hungry, formless shadows drawn to the warmth and light of stable realities. They were amorphous, but their intent was clear: consumption, assimilation. One of them brushed against his chakra thread, and a jolt of pure, alien malevolence shot back up the connection, a hunger so vast and empty it made Kurama's ancient rage feel focused and pure. Naruto snapped the thread, stumbling back a step, his breath coming in gasps. What were those? The predators of the void, Zeref said, his expression unchanging. Some call them Aetherius. Others, dimensional phages. They are beings born of collapsed magic and dead realities. A stable world like Earthland, or your home, is a feast to them. Normally, the barriers between worlds are too strong. But a fracture like this... He looked at the scar. It is a crack in the armor. Your arrival was a loud noise in the silence. They have heard it. They are gathering. A cold worse than any of Gray's eyes seeped into Naruto's bones. I led them here? To my world? And to this one, Zeref confirmed. The fracture is two-way. It is a door you opened, however unintentionally. The council fears you for disrupting magic. They are blind. The true danger is not your disruption, but your attraction. You are a beacon. The weight of responsibility settled on Naruto, heavier than any Hokage's mantle. He had fought to protect his world from Kagaya, from Madara, from the Otsutsuki. Now, he had potentially unleashed a threat upon it that he couldn't even comprehend. and upon this world that had shown him reluctant shelter. How do I close it? Naruto's voice was hard, determined. You cannot, Zeref said flatly. Not with the power you currently possess. The fracture is not just a hole. It is a fusion point. Your chakra and the lost magic of your world are now woven into the fabric of the breach. To close it, you would need to unravel that fusion without causing a catastrophic backlash that would shatter both sides. It requires a precision neither of our crude powers possess. Then what's the point of all this? Naruto asked, frustration boiling over. You offered to teach me. To what end? To just watch and study while these things close in? The point, Zeref said, taking a step closer, his void-like presence making the very light around him dim, is to change the nature of the beacon. You are a light in the darkness, drawing predators. We must make you into a fire that burns them. Your chakra interacts with magic in unpredictable ways. We must learn to predict them, to control them, to use your anomalous nature not as a passive disruption, but as an active weapon against the anomalies of the void. He raised a hand. No magic circle formed. No ether nano gathered. But the space above his palm rippled, and a small, twisted creature materialized. It was all claws and teeth and eyes, seething with unstable, violent energy. An Aetherius, a low-level one, but its very existence screamed wrongness to Naruto's senses. This is a fragment, drawn to the scar and captured, Zeref said, holding the squirming entity. Your Rasengan unravels structured magic. Let us see what it does to unstructured malevolence. He released the creature. It shrieked, a sound that hurt the mind, and launched itself at Naruto. Naruto reacted instantly, a Rasengan forming in his palm. He met the Aetherius head-on. The usual decohesion did not happen. The creature's form was not a spell. It was a solidified curse, a knot of anti-magic and void stuff. The Rasengan didn't break it apart, it ground against it. Sparks of black and gold energy flew. The creature's shriek became a screech of agony as the chakra vortex scoured its unnatural form, not unraveling it, but erasing it, particle by agonizing particle. It was less like breaking a sandcastle and more like sandblasting a tumor. In seconds, the Aetherius was gone, erased from existence without a trace of released energy. The process was silent, and utterly terrifying. Naruto stared at his hand, the Rasengan fading. He had just destroyed something completely. Not dispersed it. Annihilated it. Fascinating, Zeref murmured, his eyes alight with a cold, academic interest. Your energy is not merely alien to our magic. It is anathema to the void's corruption. You are a living purifier. This changes the equation. It felt wrong, Naruto said, a chill running down his spine. It wasn't like a normal fight. Because it wasn't life, Zeref said. It was anti-life. A parasite on reality. Your chakra, it seems, is fundamentally pro-reality. A stabilizing force. This is why you disrupt our magic, you enforce a different, more rigid order. And it is why you can truly destroy the void spawn. He looked at Naruto with that unnerving, depthless gaze. The council would see you sealed away. I see a tool. The only tool that might stand against the tide that is coming. I'm not a tool, Naruto growled, the memory of being called a weapon by Laxus flashing in his mind. Aren't you? Zeref asked, tilting his head. You were a weapon for your village, were you not? The Nine-Tails Jinchuriki. A living deterrent. You became a hero by choosing how to wield that power, but the power itself was a tool placed inside you. This is no different. You have been handed a unique capability. The choice of how to use it, as a passive hazard, as a weapon for others, or as a shield for both our worlds, is, as always, yours. The words struck a nerve. They were too close to the truth of his early life. He had fought so long to be seen as a person, not a container. Now, in this new world, he was once again being defined by what he contained. He speaks the truth, Naruto. Kurama's voice rumbled, quieter than usual, wary of the immortal mage. But truth is a blade with two edges. He sees your utility. He does not necessarily care for your soul. Be his student, but never his servant. What do I need to do? Naruto asked, his voice resigned. Control, Zeref said. Precision. Your chakra is a blunt instrument. You must learn to make it a scalpel. We will start with the most basic interaction, creating a stable field. The lesson that followed was grueling and unlike any training Naruto had ever endured. It wasn't about more power, or new jutsu. It was about minuscule, agonizing control. Zeref had him sit before the scar and extend his chakra not as a probe or a weapon, but as a perfectly still, paper-thin dome around himself. The goal was to hold it so steady that it did not interact with the ambient ether nano at all, to become invisible to the magical environment. It was like trying to hold a soap bubble in a hurricane. The magical currents of earth-land constantly pressed and pulled at his chakra field, causing ripples, flares, minor disruptions. A nearby glowing fungus would dim or brighten. The waterfall's song would warble. You are thinking of it as a wall. Zirif's voice was a constant, patient correction in the stillness. It is not a wall. It is a membrane. It must breathe with the world's rhythm, not resist it. Feel the flow of ether nano. Let your field's frequency match its harmonics. Not to join it, but to exist alongside it without friction. Hours bled into one another. Naruto's concentration was pushed to its absolute limit. He drew on Sage Mode not for power, but for its profound connection to natural energy, using that deep awareness to map the flow of magic around him. Slowly, painstakingly, the disruptive flickers lessened. The bubble of his chakra became calmer, more transparent to the world's energy. It was the ultimate suppression technique, refined to an art form. As the blue moon began to rise, Zirif nodded once. Adequate. You have taken the first step. You can now walk through Magnolia without causing street lamps to flicker. A small thing, but politically vital. It will buy you time with the council's observer. Exhausted, his mental muscles aching, Naruto let the field drop. The forest's magic rushed back in, a vibrant sensation after the long silence. What's the next step? The next step, Zirif said, is to learn to do the opposite. To not just avoid interaction, but to orchestrate it. To use your chakra not to disrupt a spell, but to temporarily alter its properties. To turn fire into light, or ice into crystal. To heal a magical wound. He looked towards the town. But that is for another day. You have another lesson awaiting. What? The lesson of trust, Zirif said, a ghost of something like sadness in his eyes. Your observer is waiting for you at the guild. Jalal Fernandez is a man who understands being used as a tool, and the cost of redemption. He is both your jailer and your potential ally. How you navigate that will determine much. Zirif turned and began to walk away, fading into the deepening shadows of the forest as if he were made of them. Wait! Naruto called after him. Why are you doing this? Why help me? What do you get out of it? Zirif paused, but did not turn back. I have lived centuries, Uzumaki Naruto. I have seen empires of magic rise and turn to dust. I have loved and brought death. I have sought my own end and been denied. In all that time, you are the first true unknown. A variable my curse cannot predict. Your existence interrupts the stagnation of my eternity. For that alone, you are worth preserving. He glanced over his shoulder, the dying light catching his profile. And perhaps, in teaching you to shield these worlds, I can atone, in some small way, for all the worlds I have destroyed. He was gone. Naruto stood alone in the clearing, the scar throbbing softly at his back, the weight of two worlds on his shoulders. He had learned to hide. Tomorrow, he would have to learn to change the very fabric of magic. And all the while, he had to navigate the suspicion of a guild, the watchful eye of a council spy, and the enigmatic tutelage of an immortal who saw him as an interesting disruption to his boredom. He started the long walk back to town, his chakra now held in that new, delicate membrane. As he passed the street lamp on the outskirts of Magnolia, it glowed steadily. No flicker. A small victory. But as he approached the guild hall, he saw Jalal standing outside, leaning against the wall, watching the stars. His expression was unreadable. The lesson in control was over. The lesson in diplomacy was about to begin. And Naruto, for all his experience as Hokage, felt like a genin again, stepping into a test he hadn't studied for. Chapter 6: The Observer and the Observed. Fairy Tale's guild hall at night was a different creature. The raucous energy banked to embers, it became a place of quiet conversations, shared drinks among close teammates, and the low crackle of the hearth. The presence of Jalal Fernandez, standing like a solemn statue near the doorway, cast a long shadow over the usual warmth. He was a ghost at the feast, a living reminder of the probation that hung over them all. Naruto paused at the entrance, his newly honed chakra membrane holding steady. He met Jalal's gaze. The blue-haired man's eyes were not accusatory, merely observant, but they held a depth of sorrow that felt ancient. Uzumaki Naruto, Jalal said, his voice quiet, devoid of the bureaucratic sharpness of Inspector Vane. Your daily curfew, as set by the council's probation, is sunset. You are late. I was training, Naruto replied, matching his tone. With Zirif. At the fracture site. Time got away from us. A flicker of something, surprise, concern, crossed Jalal's face at the mention of Zirif, but it was quickly schooled. The Black Wizard is not governed by council curfews. You are. See that it does not happen again. Your compliance is recorded. He made a subtle note on a small lacrima slate. Naruto didn't move. You don't seem like the others. The Rune Knights. Vain. Jalal's pen stilled. Appearances can be deceiving. Maybe. But I've met a lot of people who just follow orders. You look like someone who's given orders he regrets. The words hung in the space between them. Jalal slowly lowered the slate. He studied Naruto, his gaze now more searching, less detached. The Council's file on you is a list of magical anomalies and potential threat levels. It does not mention that you are perceptive. I've had to be. Naruto took a step inside, letting the door swing shut behind him. The few guild members still in the main hall, Wakaba and Mikao playing chess, a sleepy-looking Levy nursing a hot drink, glanced up, their expressions a mix of wariness and forced normalcy. They have me listed as a living magic catastrophe, right? Jalal gave a slight, almost imperceptible nod. Class Omega. A designation reserved for forces of nature and ancient, world-ending spells. Naruto managed a tired smile. Back home, they used to call me a monster. Then a hero. Then Hokage. The labels change. The person underneath, that's what matters. He started walking towards the stairs to the dormitories, then paused. I'm not a catastrophe, Jalal. I'm a guy who's really, really far from home, trying to fix a mistake before it hurts the people here, and the people I left behind. He didn't wait for a reply. He climbed the stairs, leaving the observer in the silent hall. Jalal watched him go, his stoic mask firmly back in place, but his fingers tightened around the lacrima slate. The words echoed in the quiet space Naruto had left behind. The person underneath, that's what matters. It was a sentiment Jalal had spent years in prison, and years more in atonement, trying to believe applied to himself. The next week fell into a punishing rhythm. Dawn until dusk with Zirif in the singing forest, a grueling mental marathon of control exercises. The goals shifted from simple non-interference to active, minute manipulation. Take this leaf. Zirif instructed one afternoon, holding out a simple, green oak leaf pulsing with faint wood-aligned ether nano. Use your chakra to alter the magical signature, not the physical matter. Make it resonate with water. Naruto focused, extending a thread of chakra so fine it was nearly imaginary. He touched the leaf's magical matrix. It was like trying to retune a violin string while it was still playing. His chakra, the bow, was too coarse, the wrong material. He pushed gently, and the leaf's green glow flickered, turned a sickly yellow, and then the leaf itself crumbled to dust, its structure undone by his clumsy interference. Failure, Zirif stated, no reproach in his voice, only fact. You altered the foundation before the melody. Try again. Over and over. Leaves, stones, drops of water from the singing falls. The failures were myriad: disintegration, minor explosions of wild energy, once causing a patch of moss to rapidly age and die. The process was maddening. He was a master of immense power, of the raisin shuriken and the tailed beast bomb, and here he was being bested by a leaf. But slowly, increments too small to see, he improved. The chakra thread became more agile, more responsive. He learned to listen to the magical frequency of an object and then hum alongside it with his chakra, gradually shifting the pitch. One evening, as the silver moon rose, he held a pebble in his palm. He breathed, his chakra a whisper. The pebble's dull, earthy magic shimmered, and for 5 full seconds, it glowed with a soft, internal light before fading back to normal. Zirif nodded. Progress. You have changed a property without destruction. It is the first step towards true transmutation. Remember this feeling. It is the opposite of the Rasengan. Not a vortex that breaks, but a resonance that guides. Each evening, he returned to the guild, exhausted in a way that was entirely mental. And each evening, Jalal was there, recording his return, observing his interactions. Naruto made a point to speak to him, not with defiance, but with simple, human conversation. He asked about the weather in the capital, about the rules of magic sports Lucy had mentioned, about nothing of consequence. At first, Jalal gave only monosyllabic replies or council-approved statements. But Naruto was stubborn, a trait that had broken through far thicker walls than Jalal's reserve. One night, after a particularly brutal session where Zirif had him trying to stabilize a wilting, magically poisoned flower, he had succeeded, but the effort gave him a splitting headache that made his whisker marks ache. Naruto slumped onto a stool at the mostly empty bar. Mira Jane slid him a glass of water and a plate of food that didn't rely on preservation magic. Jalal was at his usual post by the door. Long day, Naruto? Mira Jane asked softly. You could say that. He grunted, rubbing his temples. Trying to make my chakra do ballet when it's used to sumo wrestling. A faint, almost unheard sound came from the doorway. A short, dry cough. Naruto looked over. Jalal had covered his mouth with his hand, but his shoulders were shaking slightly. Had he almost laughed? Naruto grinned, despite his headache. See? Even the stone-faced observer has a sense of humor. Jalal lowered his hand, his expression still neutral, but the corners of his eyes were slightly crinkled. The analogy was apartment. He hesitated, then stepped away from the door, approaching the bar. He didn't sit, but he stood closer. Zirif's training, it is effective? It's brutal, Naruto said honestly. He's teaching me control I didn't know I needed. Control I didn't know was possible. It's like learning to write with my toes while juggling. He took a bite of bread. He says I need to be able to heal magical wounds. That seems important. Jalao's gaze grew distant. Magical wounds are often the most permanent. The scars left by certain curses, or by magical backlash, they can fester, affecting the soul as well as the body. His hand drifted unconsciously to his own tattooed face. The ability to truly heal such a thing, it is a rare and precious magic. The conversation lapsed into silence, but it was no longer hostile. It was contemplative. This fragile, growing understanding was shattered 3 days later. Naruto was returning from the forest, his mind buzzing with a partial success. He had managed to temporarily change the color of a stream's water from clear to a harmless, shimmering blue by altering its light refraction magic. He was mentally rehearsing the technique when he rounded a corner into the main street and saw the crowd. A cluster of townspeople were gathered outside a baker's shop, their faces pale with fear. In the center, writhing on the cobblestones, was the baker, a jovial man named Tomas who always gave fairy tale members a discount. His right arm was encased in a crawling, pulsating mass of black and purple energy that looked like solidified tar. It was consuming him, inching up towards his shoulder. He was screaming, a raw, animal sound of agony. 2 town healers were frantically casting dispel and cleansing magics, but their spells sizzled and died when they touched the black substance, which seemed to feed on the magical energy. Dark magic curse! Someone shouted. It came from a relic he bought at the market. The rune knights are minutes away! Another cried. But Tomas didn't have minutes. The corruption was moving faster now, fueled by the failed healing attempts. His screams were becoming weak, guttural. Naruto acted without thought. He shoved through the crowd, his chakra membrane dropping as his focus narrowed to the dying man. Stand back! He ordered, his voice taking on the tone of the Hokage, a command that brooked no argument. The crowd, recognizing him with a mix of fear and desperate hope, stumbled back. He knelt beside Tomas. The curse felt vile to his senses, a greedy, intelligent malevolence, similar to the Aetherius but more focused, more parasitic. It was a structured dark spell, actively consuming the man's life and magic. The healer stared. You can't touch it. It'll spread to you. Naruto ignored them. He remembered Zeref's words, your chakra is anathema to the void's corruption. This wasn't the void, but it was a cousin, a corruption born of twisted magic. He placed his hands on either side of the crawling black mass, not touching it, but enveloping the area in a thin, precise shell of his chakra. He didn't try to unravel it like a normal spell. That might kill Tomas if the curse was tied to his life force. Instead, he did what he had practiced on the leaf, the pebble, the water. He resonated. He pushed his chakra into the curse, not to break its structure, but to harmonize with its frequency, and then, with immense, painstaking care, he began to change the tune. He shifted the corrupt, consuming resonance into something inert, something harmless. It was like convincing a ravenous beast to fall asleep. Sweat poured down Naruto's face. The curse fought back, lashing against his chakra with psychic spikes of pain and despair. He felt its hunger, its hatred. He gritted his teeth, pouring more focus, more will into the resonance. The black substance writhed, its color beginning to shift from oily black-purple to a dull, lifeless gray. It's stopping! One of the healers gasped. The crawling halt. The gray substance cracked, then flaked away like dead ash, revealing Tomas's arm beneath, pale, weak, covered in angry red welts, but clean. The baker slumped into unconsciousness, his breathing ragged but steady. Naruto sat back on his heels, panting, his own arms trembling from the effort. The crowd was utterly silent, staring at him, at the pile of gray ash that had been a lethal curse. Then, a slow clap echoed from the edge of the crowd. Inspector Jotty's veins stepped forward, his skeletal face etched with a triumphant sneer. A squad of rune knights flanked him. Jalal was among them, his expression stricken. "A impressive display, Uzumaki Naruto," Bane said, his voice dripping with false praise. "Truly. You neutralized a Class 4 dark curse that had stumped 2 licensed healers. You have just demonstrated profound, unregistered, and highly dangerous magical manipulation in a public space, causing a significant magical disturbance in the process." He gestured to a knight holding a lacrima recorder, its crystal glowing. "All in violation of your probationary terms, which forbid any use of your anomalous abilities outside council-sanctioned testing. You have given me everything I need." The trap had been sprung. The curse relic, the convenient timing, it reeked of a setup. Naruto looked from Vane's triumphant face to Jalal's anguished one. The observer had known. Or suspected. And he had said nothing. "He saved a man's life!" a townsman shouted. By breaking the law and endangering everyone with his uncontrolled power. Thane shot back. The ends do not justify the means. Captain Lyra, take him into full council custody. The probation is revoked. Fairy Tail's guild license is hereby suspended, effective immediately, pending a full review of their complicity. As the Rune Knights advanced, their restraining lacrima glowing, Naruto didn't resist. He looked at Jelal, who met his gaze for a second before looking away, shame etched into every line of his body. The fragile understanding was broken. The observer had observed, and then he had reported. The path of cooperation was closed. As the cold magic of the restraining seals clamped around his wrists, Naruto knew the next phase of his struggle in Earth-land had begun. He was no longer a probationary anomaly. He was a prisoner of war. And Fairy Tail was now an army without a flag, standing on the brink of destruction because of him. Chapter 7: The Cage of Silent Lacrima. The journey from Magnolia was not made on foot, but in a featureless, windowless carriage of polished black wood, pulled by spectral horses that left no tracks. Inside, the air was thick with the hum of powerful suppression magic. Runic circles glowed on every surface, pulsing in rhythm with the restraining lacrima manacles on Naruto's wrists and ankles. The manacles didn't just inhibit his chakra flow, they sent a constant, low-grade feedback shock through his coils whenever his energy levels rose above a state of total dormancy. It was a pain designed not to injure, but to enforce passivity. Inspector Vane sat across from him, a cold smile playing on his thin lips. Comfortable? The carriage is lined with silent oak, grown in a magical dead zone. The runes were designed by our finest theorists after studying the data from your little incident at the guild. They don't just suppress magic. They induce a state of magical catalepsy in anything within. Even your peculiar energy cannot defy the laws of enforced stillness. Naruto said nothing. He kept his breathing even, his gaze fixed on a knot in the wood grain opposite him. He was conserving everything: energy, words, emotion. He was in the belly of the beast now. The political game was over. He was a specimen en route to the lab. Your cooperation with Zerif was noted. Vane continued conversational, as if discussing the weather. A fascinating, if reckless, alliance. It provided us with invaluable data on the limits of your control. Did you know he was feeding us reports? A cold spike, sharper than the manacle's feedback, lanced through Naruto's chest. He didn't react outwardly, but inside, his mind reeled. Zerif? Had every lesson, every moment of that grueling training, been part of a larger scheme for the council? Or was Vane lying, trying to break his spirit? Do not believe his words so easily, Kurama warned, his voice strained against the suppressing field. The Black Wizard is a creature of his own purpose. He would not serve this insect's council, but he might use them. I see that surprises you. Vane purred, enjoying the flicker of tension he'd sensed. The Black Wizard is many things, but he is not a fool. He understands the value of information. And he understood that keeping you in Fairy Tail, under his tutelage, was the only way to avoid an immediate termination order. He bought you time, and in return, we learned how you interact with everything from basic elemental magic to low-grade curses. A fair trade, don't you think? The carriage rolled on through the night. Naruto closed his eyes, retreating inward. He focused on the feedback from the manacles, analyzing it. It wasn't a blanket suppression, it was a reactive dampener. It allowed a baseline trickle of energy, just enough to keep his body alive, but spiked in pain when he tried to channel more. It was a sophisticated torture device, meant to break a mage's will by making their own power their tormentor. He thought of the leaf, the pebble, the water. Resonance. Not force. Could he resonate with the suppression field itself? Not to break it, but to harmonize with its frequency, to become invisible to it? It was a terrifying thought. If he messed up, the backlash could shred his chakra network from the inside out. But he had no other options. Slowly, with the patience of a sage, he began. Not by pushing chakra out, but by tuning the infinitesimal flow the manacles allowed to the precise, oscillating frequency of the suppression runes. It was like trying to match the pitch of a screaming siren with a whisper. He had to find the underlying harmonic, the fundamental tone of the magical negation. He used the pain as a guide. When it spiked, his frequency was off. When it dulled to the baseline throb, he was closer. Hours passed. Vane, bored with his silent prisoner, eventually took out reports to read. The only sounds were the hum of the carriage, the clip-clop of the spectral horses, and Naruto's own measured breath. Deep in his meditative state, he found it. A point of perfect, silent synchronization. For a single, glorious second, the manacle's feedback vanished. He existed within the suppression field without triggering it, a ghost in the machine. He held it for a breath, too. Then, the delicate balance wavered, and the dull shock returned. But he had done it. He had found the key. He stored the knowledge away, a secret weapon. He would not break out now, in a moving carriage in the middle of nowhere. He needed to know his destination. He needed to understand the cage before he tried to pick the lock. Their destination was not the grand, spired capital of Crocus, but a fortified complex built into the sheer cliffs of the northeastern coast, the Ethelred Containment Citadel, known in whispers as the Silent Gorge. It was a place for magic too dangerous to exist, or too strange to be understood. The carriage passed through layer after layer of security, wards that scanned for magical signatures, physical gates manned by expressionless rune knights, bridges over deep chasms that hummed with nullification fields. The very rock of the cliffs seemed to drink magic, leaving a cold, sterile emptiness in the air that was worse than the suppression carriage. Finally, they stopped in a vast, circular receiving bay carved from the living stone. The air was cold and still. Vayne stepped out, motioning for Naruto to follow. The manacles forced him to move with a slow, shuffling gait. They were met by a team of mages in gray robes, their faces covered by featureless lacrima masks. They did not speak. They simply took Naruto by the arms and led him away from Vayne, down a series of increasingly sterile, white-lit corridors. The final door opened into a cell that was not a room, but a sphere. The spherical containment unit was 30 feet in diameter, its walls a seamless, milky white lacrima. The floor was a faintly glowing grid. There was no bed, no chair, no facilities. In the center of the sphere, suspended by invisible forces, was a simple mat. The air inside was utterly dead, no smell, no sound, no fluctuation in temperature. The door hissed shut behind him, vanishing into the seamless wall. This was his new world. The silence was absolute. It was a pressure on the eardrums. He could hear the blood rushing in his veins, the beat of his own heart. The suppression field here was even stronger than in the carriage, a constant, smothering blanket. The manacle's feedback was a continuous, teeth-gritting ache. He walked to the center and sat on the mat. He closed his eyes, reaching out with his sage perception. He could feel nothing beyond the lacrima walls. No natural energy, no magical signatures. It was a perfect sensory deprivation chamber for a being who perceived the world through energy. This was designed to break minds. To reduce a powerful mage to a docile, empty shell. Naruto Uzumaki had faced loneliness before. In the academy, as the village pariah. In the aftermath of Pain's attack, bearing the weight of a destroyed village. In the moments after Niji's death, feeling the cost of war. This was different. This was engineered isolation. A science of despair. He did not despair. He planned. First, he needed to master the harmonization technique within this stronger field. It would be his lifeline, his secret reservoir of strength. Second, he needed to understand his captor's patterns. They would have to feed him, monitor him. Third, and most importantly, he needed to send a message. He couldn't reach Konoha. But maybe, just maybe, he could reach the one person in this world whose power was as vast and strange as his own, and who might be listening. He focused inward, past the pain, past the silence, to the bond he shared with Kurama. The suppression field pressed on the fox as well, muting their connection to a thread. Kurama, he thought, pouring all his will into the communication. Can you feel anything? Any crack in this cage? A long, strained moment passed. The walls are thick. Impossibly so. They are made of condensed silence. But there is a rhythm. The field pulses. A maintenance cycle. Every 12 hours, by my count, it dips for a fraction of a second. To purge built-up static, perhaps. It is the only flaw. A pulse. A dip. A window. It would be enough. When it dips next, Naruto thought, his resolve hardening. I'm going to try to send a signal. Not chakra. A memory. A feeling. Of the fracture of the void things. Zeref said he could sense me because I was an unknown. If I push that unknownness, that alien signature, out with everything I have in that moment, he might feel it. He might understand I've been taken. It is a risk, Kurama growled. The backlash could scramble your mind against these walls. It's a bigger risk to do nothing. Fairy Tail is in danger because of me. My world might be in danger. I have to try. He spent the interminable hours practicing his harmonization. In the absolute stillness, his progress was faster. He learned to exist in a state of perfect, painless equilibrium with the suppression field, a leaf floating on a torrential river. He held the state for minutes at a time, a small pocket of autonomy in the heart of his prison. He marked time by the gnawing in his stomach and the eventual arrival of sustenance. A slot opened soundlessly in the wall, and a bland, nutrient paste on a tray slid out. No utensils. The slot closed. He ate, maintaining his focus. He slept in short, alert bursts. He waited. Twice, the maintenance pulse came and went. He observed it. Kurama was right. Every 12 hours, the oppressive hum of the field lessened by a minuscule degree for exactly 0.3 seconds. It was like a single, silent heartbeat in the void. On the third pulse, he was ready. He sat in the center of the sphere, his harmonization perfect, a still point in the suppression. As the pulse began its infinitesimal dip, he moved. He didn't release chakra. He reversed the harmonization. He made his energy the absolute opposite of the field's frequency, a shriek of existential contradiction in the heart of enforced silence. He focused every ounce of his being, every memory of the fracture's wrongness, the cold hunger of the void things, his own desperate need, into a single, psychic burst. It was not an attack. It was a scream. A scream in a language the magic of Earthland did not speak, from a soul it could not contain. For that 0.3 seconds, the flawless lacrima sphere flickered. The milky white walls turned transparent, and Naruto saw, for a breathtaking instant, the complex, cavernous machinery of the citadel beyond, and the stunned faces of gray-robed technicians behind observation consoles. Then the pulse ended. The suppression field slammed back down with vengeful force. The harmonization broke. The feedback from the manacles became a white-hot agony that arched his back and forced a silent scream from his throat. He collapsed onto the mat, shaking, his vision swimming, nose bleeding from the strain. But he had done it. He had marked the silence with his name. In the observation room, alarms chirped softly. Containment field experienced a localized resonance anomaly. A technician reported, his voice filtered through the mask. Energy signature matched the subject's profile. Magnitude, unprecedented. No structural damage. Subject appears distressed. Inspector Vane, who had been monitoring from Crocus via communication lacrima, leaned forward, his gaunt face eager. He's trying to break out. Good. Record everything. Every tremor, every fluctuation. This is the data we need. Push him further. Initiate Phase 2, environmental stress testing. Introduce low-level magical stimuli. Let's see how his purification works when he's the one being corroded. Back in the sphere, as Naruto fought to control his breathing and the aftershocks of pain, a new slot opened in the wall. Not for food. This one released a diffuse, gray mist that began to fill the sphere. It was a weak but persistent curse of despair, designed to erode hope, to amplify isolation. Naruto, still trembling, looked at the encroaching mist. He slowly pushed himself up to sit. He was not broken. He had sent his message. Now, he had to survive whatever came next. He focused, pulling his harmonization back around him like a cloak. The mist touched the edge of his personal field. Instead of being negated, it slowed, its magical structure fraying as it interacted with his tuned chakra. It wouldn't hurt him. Not yet. He was in the cage. But he was learning its bars. And somewhere, in the vastness of Earthland, he hoped a certain black wizard had just felt a very familiar, very loud wrongness scream into being from the depths of a silent gorge. The prisoner had just announced his location. The next move was theirs.